Hi everyone, and welcome back to LoopStudio Talks. Today episode we have two incredible guests, LoopStudio CTO Marcos and Loop Tech Lead Tiago. Marcos and Tiago, welcome back. I already have both of you in a couple of episodes ago, but now we have something interesting to talk. A couple of weeks ago, Marcos and Tiago went out to represent LoopStudio at the OWASP Uruguay meetup. The topic was secure development with coding agents. From what I heard, the room got loud in a good way. Marcos, the LinkedIn post already has half dev community arguing in the comments. What happened there?
It's always nice to be here on LoopStudio Talks. I think it was a really nice session with Tiago and the OWASP community. We tried to have a different session, like not having like a master presentation about something, but more like making the people participate. So yeah, we were really happy with the audience. Because it's a topic that is kind of polemic sometimes. You have like a lot of things that you might think in a certain way, and there are other people that think in a different way. So I think we did a great job enabling the audience to talk. I don't know, what do you think, Tiago?
It was great, like the engagement. Like the worst fear you have before giving a talk is that nobody is listening, or like nobody even claps or asks you something. And we experienced the opposite. Like the engagement was even like too much, which was like an amazing experience, and the first time that happened to us. So yeah, I agree, it was amazing.
That's fantastic to hear. Marcos, you open it with a star. 5% of AI generated codes ships with OWASP. Top 10 vulnerabilities, July 2025, 45%. October, GPT 5 drops to 30%. The rest stays flat. March 2025, still 45%. Meanwhile, syntax went from 55 to 95. Why is security the metric that refuses to
That
budge?
was interesting because once we present that information, I remember someone in the public mentions where that data comes from, right? Like that's a bold statement. Yeah, I mean, that information is from different vendors, and there is also like different papers from the community, from the scientific community that is measuring this. Like every time there is a new model, they are testing with the framework they have. And the fact that the issue is that the incentives of the industry is to make things faster. Typically, security is something that is taken into account at the end of a project. It's not so relevant. That's what people think. So it's normal to see that syntax improvements are huge, and you can delegate a lot of the execution to cloud code or cursor. But security is not about like pattern matching, and syntax is about having the context and the discipline of your team, making threat modeling sessions, and also like modify your harness, your tool to have like better instructions. So if you typically use like the model in a naive way, you will end up using code that is generated based on real world vulnerabilities, right? Because every model is trained on vulnerable code. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, right? Like if you don't take into account security, and also the market is but going more into the go faster as you can, well, that's an issue that you need to take into account as a leader, as a technical leader, right?
That last one, the one that gets me, if security needs context, data flow, threat model, there is no model upgrade that fix it on its own. The fix is how we work,
Yeah,
not in the
correct. I
model.
mean, probably there are like some models like GPT-5 that was trained in secure code, and eventually I think it will be a model that is trained into code that is better in a security matter. But so far, well, there are a lot of incidents that shows that if there is not a security posture on your teams, you will have trouble. Like, well, every bytecode application that is written using Lowell typically has like the leak Supabase keys, or there is no row level protection on Supabase. We saw that in some analysis we did also of some bytecode products. And well, even Cloud Code has exposed their source maps. So it's about the process you have around the delivery.
Meanwhile, every keynote tell us coding is solved. You literally put that on a slide with a straight through. So which one is it?
Well, yeah, I think we discussed a lot about that with Tiago, right? Like part of this dynamic we have in the room was, well, Tiago mentioning, yeah, an experienced dev can probably build secure code with their tools and their rules and so forth. And I was more like, yeah, but if you don't have that security posture, you maybe are going to ship vulnerabilities constantly. So it's I don't know, what do you think, Tiago, about that statement? Like coding is solved, but we are seeing that probably the execution of some task is easier and is faster, but it depends on how you are using the tool, right?
That's right. Like, it's a hard question to answer because it's solved, but not for everyone. So what we see is that the default is not great, and it may be okay for like a playground project or even like a low cost MVP or a prototype. But if you're talking about production code for our clients, the default cloud code would do is not enough. So we need to, as Marcos mentions, like have a custom harness, rules, a set of skills, maybe anything that is considered user input that can get you to that like 90% or so like success rate with what comes out of the AI agent. And that's the difference we see. When we say coding is solved, well, it may be if you are the engineer behind that harness that is making sure and putting their input so that the implementation of typing the code manually is no longer done by you. That is the part we consider solved. It's not like software engineering is solved by itself, which is oftentimes what we read on Twitter or LinkedIn. And that's like the distinction we wanted to make when we presented this part.
Okay. Here, what I want to put both of you, Marcos, your slide says 45% of generated code is vulnerable. 2 slides later, Tiago says an experienced dev with the right harness generates 90% of their code with the agent and the quality holds. Help me with this, please. Is the AI dangerous or is it the best thing that happened to engineering?
It may be both. I will answer, but we definitely see how AI alone can be dangerous, and there are countless examples seen by us and published like in like big enterprise. We cannot say it's safe, and that is why having those security standards and rules is so important.
Yeah,
I don't know,
yeah,
Marcos, if
I
you
totally agree.
have
And
something else.
I mean, when I put that slide of 45%, it's more like take into account that if you're delegating the thinking or understanding and you're just like throwing prompts to Cloud Code, you're going to eventually ship vulnerabilities a lot and probably like a lot of slop code. But again, as Theo mentioned, if you have like what is called harness engineering or context engineering, what is around the tool, and it's not only like the tool is also like how is the team thinking about the architecture, because when you are building a cloud architecture, probably it's not something that you delegate to Cloud Code. It's something that you do that with Terraform or you do that with manually, even in the console of the cloud. So you need to think about where are the potential vulnerabilities, open ports, virtual private networks, a lot of things that are not directly related with coding itself. Yeah, I think that both are true, right? Like both things are true, and we need to, as Tiago mentioned, we need to consider AI as a productivity tool, but also making sure that you are using it in a responsible way.
Okay. So the AI is basically a junior developer with unlimited energy, brilliant when it's supervised, dangerous when left alone.
Well, you can put it that way, but it also knows way too much, and you need to be humble enough to consider that the agent may have better ideas or solutions than you do, but it also has no judgment. So I like to think of it as a very irresponsible senior engineer because it's not accountable. It's like that guy that knows a lot and knows what's right, but just wants to finish the job and go home. And it's like having or interacting with that kind of person, let's say.
I totally agree with that. And I think there is a major issue about, like, I agree. It's not a junior, it's more like a senior developer. And what happens when you are a developer that you are like building something with cloud and you don't review the PR, and maybe you review the PR, but you don't understand every decision? Is that okay? I mean, at what level do you trust the AI, and at which level you need to go forward and try to understand every part of the code? I think people is not using AI to understand a lot, more like to produce and produce and produce. And maybe you can also increase the velocity in which you learn by having that senior developer explain to you. So yeah, that's another concern that I have in my mind. When we saw that with Tiago in a lot of situations, like when we receive a PR and we say, okay, this smells like probably you didn't understood completely this, and maybe it's a good moment to slow down a little bit and use the AI to understand. Yeah, the effect compounds. So the next time you do that something similar, you're going to have a lot of knowledge.
3 examples from the talk that I want every dev listen to picture. And 1,700 tests, all green, but they are testing the implementation, not the public API. Change one line of code, every test breaks. What you can add
we
for
put
that?
some examples to the audience about. I think what I'm seeing is that the industry and the developers are trying to like replicating all anti patterns about productivity. Like maybe 20 years ago or 10 years ago, you were like comparing how much line of code do you ship or how many story points do you complete. And it doesn't matter if it is 20 story points or 30. What is important is the value you are adding, and if those story points are measured correctly. So with AI, I think it happened the same. Like I'm running 20 agents in parallel, shipped like 20 pull requests, and I have 200 test cases for this function. And I think that generates a false sensation of security or completeness. I mean, we saw that in some scenarios with Tiago, and what we think is, okay, we never created so much test in our life, and you are now suggesting that having 1,000 test cases is a good metric. So again, it's like leaving the model to do whatever they want and not take time to specify, to plan the feature you are doing, and making sure that the test you are doing is meaningful and is maintainable. Because once you do that, if you go for another feature, you might need to change like 55 sort test cases, and that doesn't make sense. So yeah, it was about that, about going back to anti-patterns of the industry.
Okay. The second one, someone reimplements rate limiting from scratch with API tracking for extra security insecurely.
That's pretty similar. It's like about letting the AI doing something because you think that the AI is going to solve that better than you. And again, it's a lack of probably fundamentals. Like if you know about rate limiting, you know about that it's a complex problem, and that's why there is libraries and platforms that resolve that for you, because you need to take into account the IP and like detecting the patterns. And again, I think it's like outsourcing completely the thinking to the AI, and that's a problem. I mean, it's an issue.
And the third one, my favorite, a health check endpoint that ends up exposing the entire database state. Not one of these come from bad intent. They come from missing engineering judgment, and the AI doesn't have judgment.
That's interesting, because for some reason we found that if you let like Calco or Cursor to generate a health check, it will try to generate something that is not just a health check, but it's try to get information from the internals of your application, and typically it reports like the status of the database, and that is a team pattern. You don't want to reveal that you have a database, that the database status is okay or is down. That's like information you're revealing, and there is no need to do that. But again, it's probably like the model building a solution based on insecure code, and then having a developer that doesn't have enough fundamentals or the proactivity to review the code and the judgment to say, okay, this is wrong. I need to build this again, and probably I need to build a rule or that doesn't reveal internal state to the outside world the next time I use Cloud Code, right? Because every time you find something that is wrong, you typically add a rule. So the next time things are going in another direction.
This one, not technical at all, because you broke the team into 4 groups, 20% adopters, 50% indifferent, 20% deniers, 10% want the AI to do everything from them with 0 intervention. As CTO, you are managing all 4 at once.
Yeah,
Which one
I
is the
saw
hardest?
that statistics in LinkedIn, and I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense, and I can map that to LoopStudio in some way. And I think every organization is in that situation. They have some people that is pushing for AI option, and then people that it's just a tool. I don't want to adapt to this. I mean, it's the psychological effect is really different in every person. Which one is hardest? Well, definitely the deniers, right? Well, I don't know. The deniers are the ones that are delegating everything into the AI and they are like a machine of producing wrong code. But what we try to do, and we discussed this with Tiago a lot and with the technical team, is if someone is denying the AI, it's probably because isn't using it in the right way. And the answer for that is education, like having other people doing peer programming probably and showing how things are going. So we try to push everyone to the adopter side, and it's hard work, right? I don't know, Tiago, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And it's also like every group has its own complexity because you're not only dealing with like the engineering side, you're dealing with how people is feeling about this shift. And you need to understand where like where everyone's comes from. And I find that maybe the deniers are like the more opposite to where I am, but I also feel like the deniers tell you what you need to think about better about using AI if you want to push that path forward. And oftentimes those people are just asking the right questions. And once they do, they will be able to unblock what is blocking them today from using AI, which is, I'm not sure if this is going to work.
Tiago, this is your half of the talk. The first thing you said was almost a punchline, no senior loop chatting ad hoc with the agent. There is a structured loop, research, plan, implement, test. Why you open with that?
Well, that's more like a UX perspective more than a technical one. It's like if you're using a platform like ChatGPT, those platforms can be great, but today we have better ways of using AI in our code bases, which is integrated with an AI agent like Cloud Code, Cursor, Codex, whatever. And if you are still using an external source, you need to put a lot of information from what you have to an external platform. And if you have the possibility of using the same AI model inside your code base and your context, it's just more efficient. It's not that they are any less intelligent, it's that you have better tools to use inside your coding agents.
There is a line I'm going to steal from every internal meeting when the AI fails. There is a problem, it's almost always ours. We are underspecified or we are overloaded the context, framing that for the founder who keeps complaining the AI is unreliable.
Yeah. So what I meant by this is not that AI is perfect. Is that if you're using the latest models, it's good enough so that when it fails, it's your fault. And what I mean by that is not the LLM can't be wrong. Is that it's probably wrong because you're either not putting enough information, which is I find the most frequent. Like you're not really asking everything you need to ask. And that is when, as Marco said, you outsource the thinking, you let the model think for you, and that's because you're not giving enough information from your side. But the other problem is when you actually do that, but it's just too much information to handle, or you are asking for do 3 features at once, and that's when it will fail. And some tasks maybe look small, but in the AI perspective are not that small. And that's when we think, well, this AI is worthless, or it's worse than before, or it's just good for this. And you should think, well, what can I do better as a developer so that this model, which show to be great in many things, it's useful for all my use cases. And it's a very difficult task to do. And it's a skill we are all still learning. And this is all still very new. That's why I think the best way to frame it is less. It's my fault, even if it's not.
Demo example you showed, guys, Figma to UI, take a Figma link, split the frame into a header, sidebar, main, folder, dispatch a agent to each region in parallel, assemble the live view. That's not vibes, that's engineering.
Yeah, and it's a very visual example because you're seeing how we replicate designs in code. And here, like, we have a very, very specific way of doing it, not because it's the only way to do it, but it was a very good example to showcase how using many agents is not only for doing a multiple array of features or shipping more, but to resolve what we call context engineering problems. And this is where you fall into the second category of you are asking an AI to do too much, and you should find a way to split your tasks so the AI can handle it. And the Figma to UI example is very visual to just see how that workflow is supposed to work.
But you also drew a hardline 8 to 10 subagents on a complex problem. Yes, 8 features in parallel now. Why is everyone on Twitter doing the second one?
Well, because it sounds better. Like if you're telling everyone that your company is 5 times more productive, you will get more views, likes, or whatever. And I don't think they are necessarily lying. But as we discussed at the beginning, if you are using just the defaults and you are not thinking about the complexity that you should be thinking about, you will be getting worse quality and that won't scale very well. Maybe those people aren't not being honest, but they may be overlooking the consequences long term.
Marcos, this is the kind of moment where I'd expect you push back on Tiago. You?
Sort of. I mean, we have been discussing a lot with Tiago. This talk was originally created because we discuss it a lot every day, right? And Tiago was pushing the boundaries a lot, like building 50 PRs in a day with some playground projects. And not so playground because they work, right? They were working. And we were having that discussion of, hey, what's working for you? Because if I need to review 50 PRs and that's in a big organization, an enterprise organization, I will not sleep. I will not be I will probably be really worried about that. I think what you says makes sense. The more you can push and use agents to explore and parallelize work in playground side, that makes a lot of sense. And in production side, I don't think that's wrong. I mean, an agent is not something that you need to use constantly for execution. You can use that for learning and researching. I typically focus on one task or two, and maybe I'm doing two things in parallel and then researching in another separate browser tab, for example. And that's okay. So yeah, I think we are more in an agreement right now.
This is the one I want every CTO listen to grab onto. Compounding engineering. Your example, an error handling rule, 40 lines of markdown in cursor rules, never selling catch-alls, no rows, 100 seconds, retry with backoff, no stack traces in responses, writing once, it injects into every agent session, every PR forever.
Yeah, well, this is when the documentation and your standards meet the AI. And this compound engineering concept, I don't think is necessarily new. It happened before AI. Like if you started a code base with very bad practices and no documentation, the people working on that code base will replicate those patterns. And the AI is just a multiplier. But you can use that multiplier as your advantage if you establish the rules, the harness, and documentation from the start. Because what the agent does is it tries to predict what is going to happen next. And it predicts based on what it can see. And if what it can see is bad, it will do more bad code. But if it's good, if it's documented, if it has a process, you will start for a very solid ground, and building up from that is every time is easier.
That's how you scale a security culture without writing a 200-page wiki nobody reads.
Right. Yes. Like documentation was always like put to the side by both product and engineers. Like no one really liked documenting, and now it's easy and it's useful for your main tool of coding, which is AI. So I feel like that's a very good improvement if you use it correctly and if you take the responsibility of doing that early on the project.
Fantastic. There is a lot of information, so I'm gonna go with just a last question because this one is one of the ones that I really like more about your speak and everything because it's some controversial. But if a fintech or a B2B software as a service founder is listening right now, building with agents, worried about an audit or M&A or just a security incident. I don't think so because founders think that AI solves everything, but what should they prioritize this quarter?
That's
Marcos,
a
go
really
ahead first, please.
interesting question. And we saw that a lot with Tiago. And we also offer like that service of like auditing the solution built by probably someone that is not technical. And in those cases, we typically do a security review and what they should prioritize probably is that. Like if you are using that into like you have real users. I mean, we saw a lot of examples in which they can, not even a hacker, but someone who has like basic knowledge could like retrieve the entire database easily. So you need a security review, making sure that the basic aspects of your security is covered. And then, well, that depends on the roadmap, right? But if you have like the product market fit and you want to scale, well, maybe part of your by coded application is reusable. We found that they are part of that reusable. And then there are other things that are more like a core part of the system that your vibe coded application is an incredible source for us to build the product from zero with an AI augmented engineering process, right? Like using developers with augmented with AI, they will take that into account and they will ship something that is secure and scales probably in a lot of less time because your product is a specification, right? You can use that as a spec and you can rebuild it or maybe like reuse part of the project.
Tiago, something to add there?
Yeah, no, I mean, I mostly agree. And I would say that if you're trying to make your first step into using AI, you shouldn't try to have the perfect workflow because this is constantly evolving and having like little pieces to start with is better than like over engineering an agent or something that can work autonomously and test itself and all what you're listening and seeing people doing in big companies. If you start small and feel secure about what you're doing, you will slowly start to do more and more and more. And you should feel confident with what you're building and not feel like the agent is controlling your workflow and do it otherwise.
I love this. Marcos, Tiago, thanks a lot for being here. Thanks for sharing everything. To everyone listen, if you are shipping with agents and you don't have a structured workflow yet, that's where you start. And I'm going to agree with you in almost everything. So let's try to build more secure
Thank you,
code.
Edo and
Thank you,
Tiago.
guys.
And also, if there is someone from OWASP Uruguay taking a look about this, thank you for your energy and the opportunity. So yeah,
Have a good one,
bye-bye.
guys. See you in the next episode. Bye.